We'll just share.
Yeah. Fun fact, we met for the first time like this morning.
Like 2 hours ago.
Yeah. So.
It's very exciting for us.
Thank you.
I'm so excited for Lisa to just be...
Yeah. She's tuning in from a very special place. That means a lot to her. So I'm looking forward to you all seeing it.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess for context for today, like we have kind of crowdsourced some questions anonymously online, but we did do it on Twitter/X. So really, as a dying platform, there's probably a lot of other questions that you all might have. So we kind of want this to be like fun and collaborative. Don't feel like, yes!
Yes! Our overlord is here.
The question is, can she hear us? Lisa, are you in the room with us right now?
Does she know?
I feel like I'll just DM her real quick and be like, psst.
I'm just going to take a selfie.
Yeah, good idea.
Just hang on.
As you can see, we really want this session to be fun. Like, it's a long time to be listening to the three of us kind of yammering on.
I've said my words.
You're like, I've no more. So yeah, like if you have a question like along the way, don't be shy, like throw your hand up. We might, to save everyone's legs, like if you want to project it and we'll repeat it, and then if we get to the end and we have more questions, we can always run a mic to you. But ideally, if there's something that you want to know more about as we're kind of talking, so we're going to cover a lot of stuff, because these questions are like, there's no order. Like I wanted to bring a bingo wheel, but it was really hard to bring one from Melbourne, so I gave up. Oh, I can see the hello, but I can't hear the hello. Oh yeah. Yeah, now this feels like we're at work. Let's go.
Lisa is on, but we're working on making sure she has audio. So
yeah, 100%. Well, we can vet. Well, I mean, I guess maybe to start then, like, just to give a little bit of background, because I'm not from here. I don't know if you could tell from the accent. But I'm from Melbourne, and I work at a studio called Summerfall Studios. I'm the biz dev and marketing director there. And we released a game called Stray Gods, the role-playing musical last year. And we released a DLC last week. So it's been a pretty busy time, but I'm very excited to be here. I love Wellington. Play-by-Play was the first place that I ever did a talk, and I was sweating so much. It was like, it's insane. You can go back at the video and I look like a normal person, but I wasn't. I was not. But that's me.
Yeah.
You just have to do it.
And then I'm still the same person from before.
Nothing's changed fundamentally.
I'm a new person now. No, yeah, same thing. Community, marketing, social media, all of the big hat that community people wear. But it's, yeah, I just feel like with community, there's such a range of things that people do, especially in the background, that you don't realize. Like, I think I have the Steam store backend, like, imprinted in my brain.
The bad place.
The bad place, yeah.
I mean, I guess while we're getting kind of Lisa online, does anyone have any, like, questions to start that they're like, oh, I wish I knew? Go for it. Yell it out and we'll repeat it.
What's the timeline like for trying to build up hype for a game? And when does it sort of start when you start marketing?
I love this question. So the question was, what is the timeline like for when you should sort of start marketing? Is there like a good runway that you should have of like, you know, is it 3 months or 6 months? At least on my side, I'm going to be so annoying in this session, and I'm going to say it depends so many times, and you're going to hate me by the end. But it does really depend. The advice that I often give when I get asked that question is, what can you sustain? Like, what is reasonable? What do you have content to support? If you have a massive 60-hour game and you have 1 million pieces to it and you can talk about all of them, you could potentially be building hype for like 2-3 years if you really wanted to. It'd be hard, but you could do it. So it's a combination of like, how long do you have the runway for? Like, what do you need to do? What is sustainable? And then what's going to actually retain that attention? You know, if you get everyone in 3 years ago and you know you're not releasing for 3 years, people are pretty impatient. After a year, they're going to be like, where the hell is it? You promised me. Yeah, it's tricky.
I can vouch for that because we started marketing our game, I would say, I think it was about May 2022. And we were like, yeah, we're going to launch in September 2023. We didn't. So we ended up delaying the game once it already announced and started marketing. So we extended our like marketing and social campaign. And there was a good, probably from September when it would have launched to maybe January, where it was very like, haha, okay, we get it. You're making a crab game. Like, when is it coming out? You know, like after a while, it can get a bit of dead air. So that was one thing we had to learn with our game as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Like, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so you might be like, yeah, 100%, we can do this for 6 months. And then you get halfway through and it's like, something is so fundamentally broken in this game that it needs another year.
Yep.
And if you have to, like, shift your strategy, or if you don't have the people on board that you need, or you don't have the collaboration that you might need to do that, you might find yourself in, like, a little bit of a hole marketing-wise for quite some time. So, yeah, think about what is sustainable and also, like, achievable. Like,
Hello?
it's really easy to... Oh, yes!
Live from Pack and Save, Dunedin.
Sorry.
Yay,
I didn't
welcome!
mean to interrupt you. I didn't
Not
mean
at
to
all.
Interrupt. I was just testing. Please continue.
No, we're done.
No, I'm so done. I'm so happy that you're here.
Yeah.
Yay.
We were nothing
So,
without
yeah.
you.
Sorry, I couldn't make it in person. I have to do my shopping for the week. But apparently
okay.
I'm massive.
Well, then we might throw to you then if you want to like say hey and introduce yourself for anyone that doesn't know, and then you, I believe, are going to be our like keeper of the keys, keeper of the questions.
Yep. Yeah. Hey. Yeah, I'm Lisa. I'm based in Dunedin, which is where I am at the moment, as you can see. And I worked at Runaway Play for 7 years, primarily doing community management and a little bit of marketing and some narrative design as well. And now I work at a company called Artify Interactive with my partner and friends. We've been making a game called Total Skycall, and I do just everything, I guess, except programming and art. And that's what I do. But I also have a cool slideshow
Hell yeah.
that I'm going to share. But I guess maybe we could get like someone from the audience to yell out a number between 1 and 22.
We got an 11. I don't know if you heard
11.
that. An 11.
Yeah. Okay, great. I'll share my screen.
I love that. It's like the fates have spoken from the crowd.
Okay, can you see that?
It's loading. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Cool. So, number 11 question. Let's go. This feels very targeted towards Paige.
I think this is for you. All right, so this question was, how does one have an aggressive and unprofessional marketing tone and still connect/engage with one's audience? The first thing that I wanted to, like, that popped into my brain was that our community are freaks, but like in a cool way. Like they love it when we tell them to eat shit, you know? Like that's the brand that we cultivated, where they know if they're cheeky, we're gonna bite back. But a common thing that we say is that, like, don't aggro the crab, or that we only punch up, or be aggro but be kind. So it's the kind of thing where it's like, obviously, like, we are nice and we support the community who really have supported us through these years. But then if there's like one guy who comes in and he's like, I hate your game because I do, then we're like, okay. You know, like it's kind of taking the potential to be aggressive to people who are also being aggressive for no reason. It's making light out of the sometimes toxic community that is in games.
Did you want to add to that, Lisa? I'm just going to throw to you every time so that you don't
Yeah.
feel like you have to leap in.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, our community is like mostly really kind people that just really like birds. So we haven't had any aggression yet, and like a lot of the kind of like, I guess, community management that I do is just kind of catered towards like, you know, sharing nice things about animals. And I feel like if you're like mean about an animal, then like, what's wrong with you, you know? But we haven't encountered that yet, so that's
But when
good.
you do,
Yeah.
they're done
When
for.
I do, yeah, we're gonna give the albatross a sword. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I think like an interesting word in this question is the idea of like unprofessional.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what is professional marketing in anything, really? Like, I mean, I don't know how many of you are on like Ryanair TikTok, and it's just, or like the Duolingo owl, or like, what works for you is professional. Like, if it works for your studio and your brand and what you're trying to do, and like is setting the right expectations, then you're doing the professional thing. Just because it doesn't match with this like idea of like professional or maturity doesn't mean that it's wrong. And I think people get caught up on like, oh, but I need to be so professional because maybe a publisher won't call me. And it's like, no, they'll probably call you if you align.
Yeah, and like one thing I love saying is like, we're making games. Like, that's so fun. Like, if a character in our game can swear, why am I not allowed to swear? Like, you know, I think that's really important.
Yeah, totally agree. Do we want to throw out another number?
Let's do it. Oh, we got a 15 first, I think.
15. Okay.
I heard the 4 though. We'll come back.
That was quick.
That was so
Do you
speedy.
think there is a genuine commercial market for queer games? If so, what genres might be a good fit?
It's a good
It's a great
question. Yeah, it's a very good question. This is where it's going to sound spicy, but it's not. I don't think you should be thinking about whether there's a commercial market for queer games. Your games should reflect the world, and a huge proportion of the world is queer. So depending on what you are making, that should just be part of the makeup of it. I think if you go into it being like, I am deliberately targeting a specific audience and I only want it to be for them, that's fine and that's great. But I think that we shouldn't always be putting commerciality up against what representation should be.
Yeah.
Like, I think that players and people are more than one thing. You know, people like lots of different things for lots of different reasons, and if you only hone in on one thing about them, they may enjoy it, but you're not necessarily seeing all of them. So I would say, like, yes, because there's commercial markets for people. Lisa, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's kind of, there's like that line of pride washing, like being like, hi gay kind of thing. And yeah, like you said, making games with, you know, that reflect our world is more what you should be focusing on. And there's just such a large spectrum of what a commercial market would even look like for that. So I think like trying to turn it into something that's like packaging queer games into selling it as a product just kind of feels a little bit weird to me personally.
Do you have anything you want to add?
I guess like it's like the same argument people say where they're like, are games political? And it's the same thing. It's reflecting most games are reflecting real life, and the people who are making games are like, it's coming from their own experiences too. So like with our game, we made a little joke and have, you can put krill in a little poncho that's got the pride flag, and we called it rainbow crabitalism. And it's obviously us making taking note of how some people do it for monetized reasons, but then it's important to say like most of our team is queer, and it's a commentary that we make because that's who we are, and so obviously it's going to be in our games. Like, we want to represent who's making the game, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, 1,000% agree. I think we got a number 4 that was yelled after the 15. So we're going to go way back. Oh, we had this
How
one from
early?
the audience.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we had while we were vamping, waiting for you to join us from the car park, we got this exact question. But I mean, like, I think the slight difference with this question of the like, how early should you set up a marketing goal? It's less about time and more about like intention. So it's like, when you're thinking about the marketing for your game, what do you want this game to do?
Yeah.
Like, do you want it to make money? Do you want it to like win a bunch of awards? Do you want it to give you something to work on for 6 months that you can do so sustainably? Because all of those things are going to change what the goals of your marketing actually is. So that how early should be more around like, what do you want this game to be? And do you understand that for yourself? And do you know that for yourself? And can you start planning for that and planning towards it?
Yeah, and I feel like that can go all the way into pre-production, you know? We are like, do we want this to be marketing for our studio as well, or do you want it to be a separate entity to our studio and just be this separate game? And yeah, I would say it goes all the way back to pre-production, depending on what you're wanting.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like that is something that at least I always try to start with, is like, who is the game for as well? It's normally me, but you know, also more niche people that have money and want to buy the game.
But I think that like me comment is so true though, because it's like, that's good enough. Like I think a lot of the time we can be in these conversations and it's like, oh, you've got to go and you've got to hustle and you've got to make $1 billion and also you're going to have the biggest studio in the world and you're going to buy a yacht and that's going to be your life. And it's like, games doesn't have to be that. Like what you want out of it is different for everyone. So don't be afraid to make something just because you want to. Like that's good enough. You don't have to justify that or prove that, but it might change what you do with the rest of the project. It might change how you develop it or
exactly
what you do.
Should we throw another number?
Yeah.
7. We've got a number 7.
Number 7.
Ooh, okay.
I love this.
Yeah. I don't care is my answer. Like, I think it used to be a lot bigger, but like we on TikTok was like our main platform at least. I only put hashtags in it. I put hashtag another crab's treasure in every TikTok we made, and I only did it so I could search up another crab's treasure and go like go through and see what other people made, and because you could search it up and it would say like this tag has this many views, and then I could keep track of it for reports. But I don't know if many algorithms do it to pop up anymore, but also algorithms are changing so often. I think it's more for searchability in that tag more than like trending anywhere. We don't use it for Twitter. I know Twitter used to be very big for Screenshot Saturday and kind of similar things, but those are our main platforms. I haven't really used hashtags for anything.
Yeah, I mean like are they dead? It's like, well, it depends what you want them for.
Yeah.
Like we're similar, like our main discovery platform is TikTok. And we basically just try to test a bunch of stuff. So like we have the exact same approach, like we tag the game in everything that we do. And then what we'll do if we're like, you know, we had like Laura Bailey in it, for example. So we'll hashtag Laura Bailey because we know that that's probably then going to help it get served to fans of Laura Bailey and they're going to be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
So like we'll experiment with it more than make it like a core part of our planning because like you say, like you can like wake up one day and the algorithm's like, guess what?
Yeah.
Everything's going to suck for you for like 4 months. Don't worry about it. We'll change again. Like you kind of are never sure what you're going to deal with. So you don't want to rely too heavily on one specific piece.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think I've seen them be more useful on TikTok. But that's just in terms of like reaching new people and new audiences. But also, yeah, we're just slaves to the algorithm, honestly.
Yep, pretty much.
Let's get another number going. Oh, we got a hand. Yes?
Just a question, to the earlier one, like aggro marketing. Have you ever put something out that's been so edgy that you might have actually lost some of your community? And if so, how have you gone about like recovering that, or I don't know, making it up or something like that? Like, have you come across this?
We've made a lot of oopsies in our marketing. I think that's kind of a risk we take that comes with our brand. If anything, that contributes to still being that aggro. There's been a few times we've had to apologize, but it's usually us testing the waters. Recently there was one where there was a speed running competition, and there was a specific way that you were allowed to speed run, and then the winners would, I think it was about 10K that they could win, and it was hosted by another team, so we weren't directly involved. And then we were like, there was a specific way speedrunners were jumping through the game where you would jump in the air and you would just skip a bunch of levels, and we were like, wait, this is kind of lame, like we want to see people try and do it differently. And we jumped in and were like, we'll add $5,000 to the pot if you remove this rule. And we did it too late, so a lot of speedrunners who had been practicing for a long time were like, wow, this sucks. I've been practicing for so long for this money, and now I have to change it. And so we had a lot of people who were quite upset with us with that. And so we came back and we were like, hey, like, this is our bad. We didn't mean to kind of disrupt it as much. Our main intention was to have this like ramp up of like switching it up and being like, okay, new thing. But it wasn't received that way because that was a perspective we didn't think about beforehand. And that was an oopsie that we made, and then that just happens. And everyone was okay in the end once we all were just like, sorry. And the speedrun really, really well. But it's just part of our brand where it's going to happen. And so sometimes we have to own that. Yeah.
But I think also, like, with the brand that you've built trust. Like,
yes.
your audience trusts you, and they trust that you're not doing anything maliciously or
Exactly.
so when something happens, you can just actually be like, whoops, like, that was our bad,
Yeah.
and we're sorry, and how can we, move forward together? And I think like sometimes people can be so afraid of getting it wrong that they don't even try.
Yes.
They're like, oh, I don't want to say the wrong thing, or I want to make sure this single post is perfect. And it's like, it will never be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to throw some stuff at a wall and see what kind of comes back.
Yeah, and I think it's important as like we are always willing to apologize and acknowledge when we've made a mistake. Like, I don't think we've ever really doubled down on things like this. Like, it's really important to listen to your community when you do mess up, and that, again, it builds that trust that they can communicate to you when they don't think you're doing something right.
What's the difference between marketing before release and community management after release?
Ooh.
Maybe let's throw this one to you first.
Yeah.
Could you just repeat the question for me and
let's
Goku?
just throw that one to you and Goku. It's literally, you nearly yeeted it entirely from my brain by just putting Goku up there. So the question is, like, what is the difference between marketing in the lead up to a launch versus sort of community management afterwards? Like, how does it shift and change, or what might different focuses be?
Yeah, that's a good question. So this was kind of my first rodeo as a indie developer. Prior to that, with Runaway, we already had audiences that had been playing the original game Flutter. And that was originally a Facebook game, so there was already a community there, which moved on to the mobile games, which then moved on to almost simultaneously every other release. So the build-ups was never something that I really had to do, honestly, which was luxurious, if I'm honest. But with Torua, it feels like a very kind of yelling into the void situation where we have sort of just tried different social media platforms, mostly TikTok and Twitter, to find our audience. But we did a Kickstarter at the start of the year as well, which has brought in a whole bunch of different, members of our community. And so it's kind of, once you sort of build up that initial community of fans, like super fans that are really excited for the game and the premise, and often it's not that many people as well, but they're your biggest cheerleaders at the beginning, and they often carry you through, just in terms of like sharing excitement for the game. And so, I would say like starting with just building like a really small community of enthusiasts, of people that really excited about the game, and then I guess the lead up into the launch. I haven't done that yet, so I don't know, but I'll get back to you once we get there.
What about you? Because you just had the DLC come out, so you're kind of right there at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, I think like for us at Summerfall, like there's me and there's Katie, who I work with, her whole job is our TikTok. So she runs our TikTok end to end, and she's fantastic. And so when I started, it was like 6 months before we hired her, and I was like, this is a non-negotiable for me. Like, someone has to come in and do TikTok because I'm too old, man. Like, I'm literally not hip enough. I'm going to be on there doing my own cringe shit. That's fine. But like, the studio does not need me being cringe. And so a big thing for us in that lead up was like, what do we need to kind of slowly accumulate that community that Lisa's talking about? Because our ultimate goal is for our community to have the answers to the questions that new people will ask. So for us now, because we released Stray Gods and then the DLC, we've kind of been doing all of this expectation management and like education for so long, and we're very open and honest with them. Like, we'll tell them the price ahead of time. And like, that seems like a thing that's like, well, duh, but a lot of places don't. We'll tell them where it's going to be. We'll tell them how, like, we had a video, it's the weirdest TikTok that's ever gone viral. We did a video of how to buy the game, like how to buy anything on Steam, because a massive part of our audience was for people who've never played a game before. And so for us, it was trying to identify what are things before the game comes out that are going to be barriers to entry. What are things that are going to be confusing or they're going to be unsure about, and we can empower them with that information and get them excited. And then on the other side, it's like, how do we keep them excited? How do we keep them wanting to talk about it? What can we share with them? Like, we're at a point now where they are very responsive within themselves, and that also takes the burden off your team having to be in there responding to everything all the time. If you have other people popping up and going, you can get it here, or it's this much, or it's available here, or it has this language, or so I think the biggest thing is just the way in which your community can actually support you after a launch. And once they trust you and understand you and want to see you succeed, they really rally around you, I think, which is like the best feeling ever.
It is the huge goal for community, I feel like, is a self-sustaining community where you can like dip and then come back and you're like, whoa, they're still here. That's so cool. I'm pretty much like ditto to everything there, but my favorite thing post-launch is that we can just share more things. You know, like there's so many things. Like I had a huge folder before Another Crab's Treasure came out where it was like, I can post this like 6 months after it comes out. And so I think that's my favorite part about it.
It's so true. I mean, like poor Katie, when she started, the only thing that was in the public eye about Stray Gods was like a single teaser and our partnership with Humble. And like we had no assets because we were gearing up to do a live show because we were like, why not? Let's be insane. And it was great. But we were like, we're going to release the trailer there and we're going to announce the launch date and we're going to do all this stuff. But when she started, she had nothing. Like there was nothing she could really show or talk about yet. And so much of our content was like random Greek mythology memes and just like her to camera or like us cutting together something else or being like, hey, are you a theatre kid? Get in here. So yeah, sometimes like it's literally just that you get access to stuff that you can talk about when before you've been kind of like surviving on like the scraps.
Yeah. Oh my, I can think of so many TikToks I made when it was like we just didn't have new stuff to share. Like I made so many about replying to TikTok comments where they'd be like, I've followed you, please let my family go. And I'd be like, no. And that was the whole bit for like a few weeks.
You're like, how long is this going to last?
Please, I could only threaten them for so long.
Cool. I think we have a couple. We'll start here.
Hello.
I just want to take a moment to champion Katie. Hello, it's me, your remote man editor. I think one of the things that Katie did really well is not just using existing memes, but also doing things like sharing what the DLC was going to be called with background elements before that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Seeding the song titles in those things, so keeping people engaged with that kind of tactic as well.
Yeah, so that was just a point about a campaign that we did. Because once we'd released like the main game, we were like, all right, now we can really do some like wacky stuff. And so Katie had this idea for the DLC that we should do like almost like a ransom note equivalent of putting every letter of the DLC one by one in the background of her videos for like a consistent period of time, as well as using the names of all the songs in what she was saying, so that when we got to actually announcing it and launching it, she had like a supercut of like, we've been telling you about it for weeks, you fools. And it was totally like a wild idea, but it was so much fun and like the community loved it. And it also sets up that expectation of like, we're here to be playful with you. Yeah. And look, like we'll never be like Taylor Swift Easter egg, but like we felt good about that one. Yeah. There was a question somewhere over here. Yep.
Advice, practical or impractical, for really small indie teams who might want to market? Like if there's literally 2 or 3 people working on a game and somebody's going to have to also put on a marketing hat, how do you approach that?
So the question was around, if you're a really small team, how do you approach marketing if there's like 2 or 3 of you? Do you want to kick that one off, Lisa?
Yeah. This is a tricky one because, ultimately it's never going to be as good as having a dedicated community marketing person. So even if you have like some budget, I would really encourage you to put it towards a marketing or community management person. But I think that what I enjoy seeing, at least, from really small teams, is just their process. Just sharing everything. I mean, I know I've heard that like apparently you're not supposed to kind of like share yourself and like, make yourself vulnerable or whatever, because it makes you more vulnerable or prone to, I don't know, trolls or whatever. But I feel like when I am learning about, the person making the game or the team making the game and seeing, every aspect of development, whether it's, sharing bugs or like them just like going out for lunch or whatever, it's like a parasocial relationship, I'm realizing. But yeah, I think just don't be afraid of sharing things that aren't polished and like perfect. Like people are just as interested in the process as they are with the, finished product.
Yeah, like I think it's that whole like trying to market with what you have. Like in my talk before, we talked about how when we made our Dark Souls-like video, most of the assets we already had in the game. And when you're a small team, showing that progress of just what you have, don't stress about having to go out of your way to edit a huge video if that's not what you have. Just establishing what skills your small team has as well. Maybe someone likes to edit, or maybe none of you like editing at all. You can turn that into a bit by being like, is this how you do social media? And then you can show something that's really broken, Just trying to find your tone with what you have and just experimenting with that, and then seeing if that workload even works. I think that's a big part, especially at the start of your strategy. I think experimentation is fun and really important.
Yeah, I think it's like pick your battles, right?
Yeah.
Like the kind of core of that advice, I think, is literally like do less. Because I think a lot of the time people think about marketing and they're like, yeah, marketing. And it's like, that's like 12 jobs. Like there are 12 different specializations, and that's putting it lightly, under the banner of marketing, right? You literally physically cannot do them all. It's not going to be possible, even in bigger teams, even if it's someone's dedicated role, right? So knowing what is actually achievable, and then sitting down and going, what are our like must-haves? Like what do we have to do? What is really important to us? Like we really need a trailer, or we really need to do this one specific show because it has a perfect overlap with something we're making. Like look at your game as kind of critically as you can to be like, what are the pieces here that I really need to pull out and show off? And then give yourself permission to not do some stuff. You don't need to post every day on a social platform if that's not going to be valuable long-term for you. You don't need to do what it seems like everyone else is doing if that's not going to be sustainable, because otherwise you'll make this big grand plan, start, and then be like, oh my God, I'm dying. I have to stop. And you won't end up posting anyway, but except now you feel bad about it. So like set yourself up to succeed, not to fail by putting these like really unrealistic expectations on yourself. Do we have another question, or are we? Oh my gosh! Oh, there's two of you in the one closest to the front.
Me?
Yes.
Kia ora. First off, thank you so much. This is loving the conversational vibe of this whole thing. It's really cool. But I wanted to ask, at the start you mentioned Twitter is dying. TikTok's come up a hell of a lot. You've got a dedicated person at Summerfall to TikTok. I'm just curious about your thoughts about going wide on social media platforms or really focusing on one. Like the US government's talking about whether they ban TikTok. Is that a worry for you guys? I guess that's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, so that question was essentially around like social media and its transient nature, in that every platform, every 5 minutes seems like it might fall over and explode, and sometimes they're really core parts of your strategy. So what do you do? For us, my like general rule of thumb is that I always want to look at 3 platforms, but that is almost an outright lie. And what I say when I say that is we have our TikTok that we run, and that is our core platform for discoverability. So that is us trying to get people to hear about the game or come across the game kind of randomly by chance. That for us is like one way of doing that, and it's the one we're choosing to focus on at the moment. If it disappeared tomorrow, we would be finding a different strategy around discoverability. What that looks like, that could be a combination of advertising, that could be event stuff, that could just be scaling up in other areas. But every single video that we post gets reposted by a program that we use called Repurpose to Instagram.
Oh, I love Repurpose. I love Repurpose.io.
And it means that for every millennial in your life that won't download TikTok, so like, I don't want to waste time, and then spends 12 hours on Reels a day, they get to see it too. So we do really well on Instagram, and we don't touch it because it just goes to a different audience, and it's not our core platform. And then for us, Twitter is our more general like news service. If Twitter falls over, we also have our mailing list. We also have our like patch notes and forums. So like, it's just about the level of effort, I think, that you put into different platforms. It's not that the platform is solving the problem, it's a vehicle to solve the problem. There will always be vehicles, so you'll just be getting out of that car and getting into a different car and being like, that car was great, but now the engine exploded. So yeah, giving yourself the room to know what is contributing to what part of your kind of pipeline and not worrying too much about the where. And not jumping ship too quickly either, because it can be really easy to see this stuff coming and be like, oh my God.
Yeah, when there was stuff with Twitter and people were jumping ship, we were like, let's try these new things and get these new handles just in case. Like there was Hive and there's Blue Sky, and then Threads happened, and then we were like, okay, we should just at least secure the handle, see what it's like. And every time I was like, this sucks. I don't want to do this. Like this is so draining. And it's just the putting our eggs into like too many baskets. And when I could feel more secure and have a proper strategy by having like about 3 solid ones to stick to. And then maybe if it does get deleted, like TikTok or banned, then we'll figure it out, I think, closer to it. I'd rather just stick it out instead of jumping ship, you know, because it's just so unpredictable. I find each week something different is happening, and it's just kind of going with the flow with that. Everything is constantly on fire, and we're just chilling.
And it's a different community on every platform, I think is the other thing. Like you'll have, you know, however many numbers on one platform and half that on another. Yep. So often trying to funnel them to each other is a good way around it as well, and trying to get people across as many places as possible. But the one thing I will say outside of all of that is that people don't use their mailing list enough, because everybody has an email and it's been around a while and things are looking all right. So being able to actually like use your mailing list and use it well is not an easy thing to do, because all of us get a billion emails a day, but you can be really successful with it, and it gives you a direct line to people that no matter what platforms explode, you have the option of being like, hey, call me on, I don't know, whiz bang or whatever the hell the next thing will be. What do you think, Lisa?
I think you need to trademark whiz bang immediately.
Oh my God, are we doing this?
I completely agree. And I think just not spreading yourself too thin, not trying to like win the platform as well, you know, like trying to optimize and sort of like min-max each platform, because you'll just wear yourself out. I think it always just comes down to trying to create, you know, quality content over quantity for the audience that you want to reach, and having fun while you're doing it. And wherever you end up doing that, it doesn't really matter, because Whizbang will take over next year. So
That's right.
Next year, sponsored by Whizbang.
Oh my God.
Let's go. And I think we had another hand that was a few back. Yep, you there in the middle.
What are your thoughts on ARGs and ARG marketing?
That's such a fun question. I'm so excited. The question was, what are your thoughts on ARGs and ARG marketing? So for those that may not know, there's the chance, ARG is like an alternate reality game. So it's like, you know, a game outside of the game. I ran one for a mobile game that I worked on called Hola Vista. And so we had a very strange, quite weird game, and we were like, we want to do something quite strange and weird with it. And this was quite early in the days of TikTok. And what we ended up doing was bringing on some ARG game designers and working with them to build a full-scale story that was adjacent to the story of the main game and basically led into the start of our actual mobile game. They were really talented game designers, and they came up with a really clever angle for the ARG, and we ended up using TikTok, because I was like, I think we should have like a character that people can attach to. And so they created this character called like Blurbex9, and it went like crazy viral and went really well, because everyone wanted to engage with it. They wanted to help. They wanted to like help this person uncover this secret of this like spooky architecture house, essentially. So they can be really, really effective if it makes sense for the tone of your game. They're really hard to get people in the door on, because you need to know what people find valuable in something like that. The ARG community, though, is like wild. They're so passionate and they're so interested, and they work together and they tell each other about ARGs that they enjoy. And there's not that many actually out there. So if it's something that makes sense for your game and you think you can explore it and you can get that message across to them, I'd say do it, because it was so much fun and it actually did go really well. Would you do a crab ARG?
This is cool because I know nothing about what we're talking about. So this has been so fun to listen to. Maybe.
Do it.
I'm going to Google more about this later.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that, but it sounds cool.
I'm so happy you had an answer.
It was genuinely, it was like the most buck wild thing. Because I was just like, the only ARG I'd ever seen was one that Blizzard did for Sombra, her introduction into the game. They did this big ARG, but they kind of like overcomplicated it, which is really easy to do as well. And again, ARG fans are passionate and they were like, this is too far and you've messed up this and we've figured this out already. And like they burn through content. It's like they speed run knowledge. It's like frightening. But it is really awesome. So yeah, I think they're a good vehicle if they make sense for your game. But yeah, that's a tricky question and you then need to really know how to reach that ARG audience to get them in the door. And they may not necessarily overlap with your game's audience all the time. Any other hands? Or will we go back to numbers? Yes.
Before you mentioned there were like 12 different specializations. I assume that was like a rough number. Could you elaborate more on like the different areas of marketing / meeting management? Just like the different specializations.
Should we do it like those games where you go like one at a time?
Ooh. Well, like every
like we
section?
we each say one and then we just keep going until we run out.
Oh my God, yeah, like all the hats?
Just everything under marketing.
Yeah.
All right.
You start.
Public relations.
Player support.
Lisa, your turn.
Wait.
Sorry, I'm just distracted.
Oh my God.
Wait, what was the question?
So sorry. Honestly, so fair. It's exactly what happened to me with Goku. We're just going through and trying to name as many like hats that come under marketing as possible.
Oh, yeah.
So we said, what did we say? I've already forgotten.
You said public relations and I said player support.
User acquisition.
It's a good one. Advertising.
Trailer production and like video editing.
Influencer outreach.
Yeah. Branding. My brain feels like a sieve now. Let's just yell at when we get them.
I'm trying to think of everything.
I know. I mean, like, I think it's that thing that every single piece breaks down into more pieces.
Yeah.
So it's like if you talk about like a press strategy, it's like, cool, you've got speaking to the press directly. You've got, are you working with someone who's doing that? Your press breaks down into different places because you've got games press, you've got traditional press, you've got podcasts, you've got magazines. Like there's such a host of things that you could be engaging with.
Yeah.
And everyone can specialize in a different one.
And I find there's like tasks that you do that you're like, I don't know what hat this falls under. Like if I like touch up and edit our store page, like sometimes a dev does that, sometimes the community manager does it. It just depends who you ask at the time. Like uploading screenshots to like your Nintendo storefront or submitting your game to be rated. You know, it's like these little things that sometimes fall between the cracks that often fall onto community managers and marketing teams.
Yeah, copywriting. It's kind of like everything that someone else doesn't want to do that isn't production's job often falls with marketing. And I think that that's pretty consistent among a lot of teams. And I think if you haven't tried to do each of these specializations even a little bit, you'll often see job ads that are like, you're going to do all these things and it's going to be totally fine. It's like, it is not. It's not going to be totally fine. I think we're coming up to, ironically, question time.
Yes. So say farewell to our amazing community and marketing panel.
We did it.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.